Hello folks, and welcome to this here Resident Evil 2 review on PC. Now, I'm going to assume most of you watching will have played or at least been aware of the series and its place within the horror gaming genre. Resident Evil 2 originally launched way back on the PS1 in 1998, making this remake a sort of 20-year anniversary edition of one of the most popular games to have been released on consoles. For the very few of you who haven't seen or heard of the series, Resident Evil is one of horror gaming's all-time greats. Set in a fictional United States for the original trilogy at least, the narrative focuses on a pharmaceutical corporation known as Umbrella and their experimental bioweapons that, of course, run amok and cause lots of zombies to be made, alongside a few more freakish creations. The player usually takes control of a single protagonist as they navigate the game's world, collecting items to survive and in order to complete puzzles to advance the plot, all from a third-person, over-the-shoulder perspective. Anyway, with that out of the way, what does this Resi 2 do that is different from the original? Well, first off, the game plays very differently. Gone are the fixed cameras and tank controls of the original titles, instead replaced with an over-the-shoulder camera that really reminds me of playing Dead Space. Aiming with a mouse and creeping around the environments felt very familiar, and I mean that in a good way. Given how great Dead Space was to play, being able to very quickly orientate myself toward the new style for Resident 2 here was a good, big plus in my book. And much like the original games, the aim here is to survive and not simply run and gun. Ammo is scarce, and at times it's better to just flee or run around zombies than it is ever to gun them down. Plus, you never know when you're going to bump into something that's far more dangerous and does require all of that ammo. Another major aspect to consider is inventory management. You can pick up as many objects as you want as you explore, but you only have a finite number of slots to carry them, and it means you need to keep an eye on your areas that might need a handle, a button that's needed to activate a console, a fuse switch. Any of those kind of things are needed for multiple puzzles or just to be able to unlock new areas to explore. Now, the inventory can be increased with items that can be acquired through exploration and solving some puzzles, but it isn't a massive amount by game's end even. And this is one of the better parts of it, in my opinion at least, since having the ability to carry everything, all your ammo, all your equipment, alongside all the quest items would make the game far too easy, and to be honest, very short. Fortunately, in this version, the game's map does actually highlight things that you haven't picked up, so you can have a quick check to see what you have or haven't grabbed, and an area will change from red to blue to show that you've completely explored it. Another nice aspect is how the game now tells you that when key items are no longer required. So, in the previous games, you would be wandering around with them, always wondering if you needed them. Now there's a little tick that appears, which is really handy because it just means you can discard it straight off and free up an item slot. It is also worth examining all items that you do pick up, because some of them can be used to activate doors. They can turn into a USB dongle, for instance, and you can learn what the item is, which makes it a lot easier sometimes when you have certain puzzles that have multiple items. Now, item boxes are generally quite generously spaced around near save points in the world. Death isn't going to be a massive setback for you, but it can be a pain having to swap items around only at the storage boxes at times when you need them, especially when an item is one end of a level and you need to go all the way around to grab items that are required. And I'm trying to skip any kind of spoilers here. I don't want to ruin anything for those of you who haven't played it, but the game is pretty tense. It's atmospheric as a horror action hybrid. Changes have been made to the classic events that you may have experienced in the PS1 days, and for me personally, I found a new level of hate for a certain enemy that wears a trench coat in the game, but again, I'm going into spoils on that. So the combat reminds me a lot of Dead Space. Aim for the head on zombies. If you're lucky, you'll get one of those headshots that pop them like a grape. Anywhere else where you shoot is kind of a waste on a zombie. The effects are really nice. As the more you hit them, the more holes appear, bits of flesh fly off and bones get exposed, that kind of thing. And if you do end up getting grabbed by a zombie, they added a new counter-attack ability, which allows you to stab the enemy with a knife or put a grenade in their mouth, that kind of thing. It literally just tears them apart. More exotic enemies can be shot anywhere, doing bigger damage, but usually this means they're far more dangerous, and you have to take great care to avoid being hit by them. So, visually, the game is really pretty. I'm running this on an RTX 2070, and I still can't run everything maxed texture-wise, but it is still very, very pretty in a grim, gory way. The attention to detail in the game's environments really bring it to life as well, with little things that help to set the scenes and tell the story of what happened there without the need for any exposition. The lighting really helps set the mood. Areas that in the original game had much brighter lighting due to the limitations of the PS1 now have way more tension added to them, as the use of shadows and realistic lighting effects provided by your Torchmaker broom seem far more dangerous than it probably is. The sound is on point as well. The overall presentation of Resident 2 is one of the best that Capcom produced in years. Creature and zombie sounds are genuinely frightening at times, with the environmental effects like smashing windows in the distance, creaking floorboards, all adding to the experience greatly as you move around. If you have surround sound or 5.1 setup with headphones, you'll really appreciate the effort that's gone into making the levels feel oppressive and sometimes quite claustrophobic as you listen for groans and shuffling sounds in the undead, or some of the more other telltale sounds of more dangerous creatures. So, if you're a fan as well, you're most likely going to invest in one of the DLCs right off the bat, which is the soundtrack DLC from the original Resi 2. And it does sound really good, actually. It does still work, despite the age. The original soundtrack is still very creepy, very atmospheric, and very evocative of the original Resident Evil series. The new soundtrack isn't bad by any means. It does just as good a job, but for anyone who's a real diehard, I imagine you're going to enjoy that more. The voice acting is also a huge step up. Obviously, the original jokes around Capcom Resident Evil games was they had some of the worst voice acting in history, but this is quite a step up for Claire and Leon, and some of the other supporting cast. I was quite pleasantly surprised, actually, how good a job they do, with sometimes a pretty cheesy plot, to be fair. Although, I do have to question sometimes, after hours into the characters shooting zombies and other things, that they still shout random lines like, "What the hell are you?" while shooting a zombie, or just randomly, "You bastard," every shot. That seems a bit out of place. Characters, though, are insanely detailed. The level of detail in the characters in cutscenes and in engine look really, really good. Surprisingly detailed, and it runs extremely smooth. Although I'm on an RTX 2070, I have much older RAM and a kind of mid-range chip, and the game loads very quickly. It runs very smoothly. It's steady 60 and above the whole time, frame rate wise. And the game also doesn't clock in that big on hard drive space, even around about 30 gig, which is pretty good, all things considered, with just how nice this looks. You can also unlock numerous outfits as you play through the game. You can have the characters dressed in some of their classic outfits from the original game, or some more outlandish things, having them dressed as noir detectives, military types, that kind of thing. In fact, one of the big reasons you'll play through Resident Evil 2 multiple times is to unlock more of these outfits and other bonuses, specific weapons that you can start the game with, having things like infinite ammo for them, that kind of thing, just to basically have more fun runs with the game. But yeah, post-completion, the game will offer more of a second route for whatever character you didn't choose to play. So if you choose to play Claire first, you'll have Leon B, that kind of thing, and that gives you an altered layout to keep it fresh, different enemies in different locations with slightly revamped puzzles. And since February 2019, they also did an update which added more characters to play in a new mode called Survivors Mode, although these are a much higher challenge compared. So overall, the game can be completed in roughly 5 to 6 hours. For a noob like me, more skilled people can speedrun it. Though I wouldn't count that as a negative, as the Resi series has always been about the experience and always about completing the game multiple times over to unlock more of the extra features, more of the character playthroughs, the different modes and stuff like that, finding more secrets, and yeah, just I think generally just trying to get a better and better time. It's almost like the Resident 2 has kind of a time attack kind of element to it, so the game will keep track of the number of times you saved and the number of times you saved and how long it took you to complete, which means you will get a grading at the end. My first one, I had 50 saves, which is terrible, but my time complete was about just shy of 6 hours 5 minutes. And that gave me a B rank, for instance. I think the highest rank you can get is a triple S rank, I think. So yeah, it's like saving as few times as possible and getting through the game as quickly as possible. It's almost like a challenge in itself, which is one of the reasons Resi 2 was so popular on the PS1, because it had the same kind of thing for unlocking specific items. But yeah, overall, Resi 2, it's a really good package. As much of a wimp as I am with horror games, it was fun to go through. Even with the scares, that was honestly part of the fun. being scared by the game and overcoming it was worth it. I look forward to seeing, hopefully, Capcom bringing Resident Evil 1 and Resident Evil 3 to the same standard, so we can have the original trilogy to play on PC with those new controls and that extremely pretty engine. But yeah, overall, I'd recommend it if you like your horror games. If you haven't tried Resi 2 before, it's worth it, really is. And if you're just looking for something a bit different, yeah, it's worth having a look at. So hopefully that's helped. Have a good one. Thanks for watching, everybody, and I'll see you next time. Bye.